All right, welcome back in for another episode of the Ball Boys podcast. As always, Dylan Mehl and Nolan Foster here. Great weekend of NFL action. We have an even better weekend coming up as far as I'm concerned. Some marquee matchups. We got Chiefs, Dolphins in Germany. We got Bengals and Bills Sunday Night Football. Eagles and Dallas at the 4 o'clock slate. So a really solid set of games this week, and I can't wait. But we're going to talk about Week 8 because I think there was a lot to learn from Week 8, especially in one game that we will get to. As always, though, the Ball Boys podcast is brought to you by Coffee of Gods. Shit's so good, cup's already empty, so you guys won't see me drinking today. You see the energies though. The levels that the Coffee of Gods gets you to, climbing the ladder of success. However, speaking of success, best bets recap. We could talk about mine in a second. Nolan, is this your first 3-0 week? I think it's your first 3-0 week.
It was a long time coming. We're halfway through the season, just like hit like clockwork, bro. 3-0. I was pretty confident going into the weekend. I mean, hey. We're slowly creeping, Dylan.
Yeah.
We're making waves.
So for anybody that's keeping track at home, Nolan on the season is 14-10, and I am 16-7-1. The one that happened this week, I had the Eagles -7. They won by 7. Count that there. I had the Rams +6. Dallas does what Dallas does. You get that pick 6 early, and then all of a sudden Dak Prescott's playing with a lead, and he looks like prime John Elway. So that one didn't hit, and then I had Seahawks -3.5. That one just barely covered, but hey, win's a win. And then for Nolan, he had Jags -2.5. They easily covered that, double-digit win there. I think you even said you wouldn't be shocked if they won by double digits.
Maybe,
so, no extra points for that, but still right is right. I don't want to talk about the Bengals one. What was the other one that you had? That's
Dolphins.
Dolphins, yeah.
9.5 or 9.
Yeah. Dolphins beating up on the Patriots at home. When you said that one, if people that watched could see my reaction, I was like, damn, I should have taken that. But you did have the Bengals +4, and they won the game outright. And that's where we're going to start because I thought this was the most important game of the weekend for both teams. Both teams really needed a win. Cincinnati coming off the bye at 500. How healthy was Joe Burrow going to be? They've got a gauntlet of games coming up. They've got divisional games. They got the Bills on Sunday Night Football. You know, their schedule right now, everybody kept talking about the Eagles 2-month stretch, and I want to pull up the Bengals' exact schedule because it is brutal, man. I mean, if you factor in the division, they're 4-3 now. They got Buffalo on Sunday night. They got Houston, who they've been competitive, at Baltimore versus the Steelers, at the Jaguars. So the next month for them, I mean, there's not an easy game on there. Eventually, they get to the Colts and the Vikings. Those seem like pretty easy games, especially after the Kirk injury. That's not on the slate today, but, get well, Kirk, obviously. Hate to see that. We were talking about the Vikings potentially having a comeback, but the Bengals, over the next month, they've got some real games. And listen, am I rooting for them because I have a futures bet with Tyreek Hill Offensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt Defensive Player of the Year, and Joe Burrow MVP, $5 to win $7,500? You bet your ass I'm rooting for the Bengals to win every one of those games. But they looked really good, man, in this win over the San Francisco 49ers, 31-17. Joe Burrow had a stretch in this game of 19 straight completions. Jamar Chase, 10 for 100 and a touchdown. T. Higgins had 5 for 70. Tyler Boyd found the end zone. Joe Mixon, all of a sudden, things started opening up for him because the passing game was legit. But the biggest W had to have been Joe Burrow's mobility. That cat, if you had just watched that game, you would have never known that guy had a calf injury. I mean, just 1 week off, and that guy's – I mean, he had a play where he escaped a sack from Nick Bosa, Armstead, and somebody else and came out, threw on the run, a dot right to the first down marker to T. Higgins on 3rd down. I was like, whoa. Joe Burrow is back. The Bengals are back. You'll see when I post my top 10 teams later on Twitter. I'm very high on the Bengals after this weekend. I think the Bengals are back. I think it's here we go again, like we went last year with this team. Slow start, Joe Burrow battling with some injury, but by week 17, 18, the Bengals will be a top-tier playoff team, and we'll forget that it ever even happened.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Bengals showcasing was insane. I mean, Joe Burrow, like you said, he looks pretty healthy. I saw a report, I think, middle of the week or end of last week, and that was probably a big reason why I took the Bengals at +4, 4.5. And for me too, I think the game more so told me how not ready the Niners are. For me, like we've been on the Brock Purdy train and just how not him he is. He's not the guy, and it's tough because like you look at the NFC and you don't want to like kind of get over like your shoulders, but like if you're an Eagles fan and if you're Philly, like the Niners were supposed to be your biggest competition going into this year. You have the Detroit Lions, who they're good, but they have some question marks, and the Dallas Cowboys. So if I'm an Eagles guy, like they have a tough schedule coming up the next 5-6 weeks, and if they could just beat the Niners, beat the Cowboys, maybe even split, like they should be all right. So that's awesome for us Eagles fans. The Niners, they look a mess, and 3 straight in a row losing to Minnesota too. That was embarrassing, and I don't know, man. If I'm a Niners fan, like I'm very worried. The trade deadlines today, I don't know what they could do. Maybe some defensive help, cornerback help, but they just look not right at all.
Yeah, and we could talk about the Niners here. Like you said, we try to tell you. I think I've made probably about a video every other day, whether it's on Ball Boys, TikTok, my channel, arguing with people that for the first month of the season, I was told Brock Purdy's elite. He's the next Tom Brady. And I just said, guys, let's calm it down. He hasn't even played a full season yet. Let's let teams see if they can figure him out. Let's see what happens to this guy when injuries start to happen. Let's see, what happens when he needs to play from behind. A lot of people forget he was 10-0 last year, but like the end of the Niners schedule was kind of soft. And their playoff matchup was Seattle, who Seattle's much better this year, but they started the second most rookies on a team last year. And then they played Dallas, and he only scored 17 points. Like, he got the win, but that was all the defense and Dak Prescott turning the ball over. They go into Philly. I'm fully convinced they were going to be thumped in that game. And then they come out to start this season, and they kind of had an easier schedule. And now some of the tougher games started, and not even fully tough games. Cleveland with P.J. Walker on the road. Yeah, it's an elite defense, but it's P.J. Walker. Then Minnesota, primetime Kirk Cousins. And now the Bengals, who were 500 coming into the week. So San Francisco, it's a little bit of fool's gold, I guess, is what Brock Purdy is. And, no pun intended there with the Niners, but he's not a top-tier quarterback. He is a mid-level quarterback. He is a game manager, but he's not the best one in the league. I'd still take Jared Goff over him. I'd still take a healthy Kirk Cousins over him. And I'd still take Tua over him. He's all right. He's serviceable. He's not Jordan Love or Desmond Ridder. There's no need to bench the guy. He's not that bad. But this is why I was a proponent of keeping Trey Lance. And everybody's going to dog on me, and it's cool. His ceiling was significantly higher than Brock Purdy's. We have seen Brock Purdy's ceiling. There's a reason he went to Iowa State, was an average quarterback there, and was skipped in the draft by everybody multiple times, including the 49ers. We act like the 49ers saw something everybody else didn't. It was the last pick of the draft. They skipped over him like 7 times too. There's a reason. He has the small hands. That's why we've seen back-to-back weeks of fumbles. He isn't a dynamic player. He's a game manager. And with Shanahan's system in an Avenger squad of weapons, it usually works. But no Debo, no Trent Williams. All of a sudden, the sky is falling. You still have McCaffrey. You still have Kittle. You still have Ayuk. So I don't want to hear any excuses. That's still a better set of weapons than most quarterbacks have. That's a better set of weapons than Patrick Mahomes has in Kansas City. That's a better set of weapons than Russell Wilson has in Denver. It's a better set than some quarterbacks that we've talked worse about. So, yeah, for the 49ers, I don't think they can win a Super Bowl. Do I still think they can win their division? Yeah. But to me, are they a Super Bowl contender? No. You have to be right at the quarterback. You almost always have to have a top 10 quarterback to win a Super Bowl. When's the last time it wasn't? Maybe Joe Flacco? I mean, that was an improbable run. Nick Foles, but, again, another improbable run. Could it happen? The 49ers have the stacked enough team that it could, sure. But you won't catch me picking the Niners to win 3 straight playoff games, maybe 4. Because they're going to be outmatched at quarterback in just about every single one of them. In the wild card, maybe not. Depends who they draw. If they get the Falcons and it's Heineke versus Purdy, sure. I'll give the edge to Purdy there. But you start playing Detroit, give me Goff. They play Dallas again, maybe we'll call it even. You play Philadelphia, whoever comes out of the AFC, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Herbert, Allen, Tua, probably all 7 teams that make the playoffs in the AFC will have a better quarterback than the 49ers. Lawrence. So, yeah, for me, the Niners, they made the same mistake that they continue to make over the past, 5 to 10 years? Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy. And the Shanahan system can't do it all. You guys got to at least splurge a little and go get a Jared Goff. But until that happens, they won't be good. And let's talk about a team that's pretty comfortably sitting atop the NFC, in my opinion. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles at 7-1. I know Detroit's 6-2. And Detroit could very well get the 1 seed. They could. There's a world where Philly goes 500 over this next stretch, like you said, and Detroit's kind of got an easy schedule going forward, so it could happen. But those are the top 2 teams right now that I think could win the NFC. Dallas could win it too. I'm not going to fully count out Dallas. To me, Dallas is Philly's biggest competition come playoff time, just because they've got more game wreckers on their team, and they'll have seen Philly twice. So I'll give credit where credit's due there. You get an early pick 6 and things can go awry with Dak. But the Eagles this weekend, man. Brian Johnson, his best game as an offensive coordinator. And I saw this tweet. The Eagles could have scored 50 this weekend if it weren't for fumbles. And that's not on Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson called a perfect game. Jalen Hurts' best passing performance of the season, 300-plus yards, 4 touchdowns. A.J. Brown sets the new record for most consecutive games of 125-plus receiving yards at 6. Absolute elite numbers. He had the crazy one-handed touchdown catch, another comeback, and split the defenders, 2 touchdowns on the day. The Eagles, man, they're not done. I think they're still going to trade for another defensive player. I've been seeing kind of conflicting reports all over the place, as I will on Eagles Twitter. So I don't know how much to take anything in, so I'll share everything. I've seen Jalen Johnson from the Bears who requested a trade. I've seen how he really likes him, 24-year-old corner. So price is probably kind of high. I've seen Jordan Hicks, linebacker from the Vikings, now that their season may be over. And I've seen Aaron Donald from the Rams. I don't know if that one's just kind of a pipe dream, but I've seen it. And I saw a report that said the Eagles' #1 target is an edge rusher this deadline, which Wouldn't shock me. Howie loves him. But man, after week 8, there's no way to not sit comfortably as an Eagles fan. Another Niners loss. Detroit, red zone struggles last night. And you kind of wonder, could Jared Goff actually come into Philadelphia and win a road NFC championship? I have my doubts. It's nothing against Goff specifically, but at quarterback, Hurts is way more dynamic. And in terms of weapons, the Eagles have more. DeAndre Swift, revenge game. The Eagles' O-line, slightly better right now. The defense for Detroit, it's getting better. But that's a game where they'd really miss C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And that's a game where I just don't know if they have enough game wreckers. You need them in the playoffs. Aiden Hutchinson, but that's about it. You know, the Eagles have Davis, Reddick, Slay, Byard. So whether it's at home or on the road, you feel really good if you're an Eagles fan right now. And you're ready for Dallas week.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me this year is that they really had to earn these wins as opposed to last year. Last year, they cakewalked. They slept through the whole year. Had like 1 or 2 competitive games where, they had to come back. This year, it's almost every other week. And I think that's what really builds a team, builds its character. And you could really see, I think it was the Julio Jones touchdown. It was, first of all, awesome pass, awesome catch. Yeah. But as soon as Julio caught that pass, everybody ran over to Julio and was like getting hype with him. And it just shows how much of a bond this whole team has. And I think the biggest thing for me is I kind of realized this kind of after last game, especially with the A.J. Brown stats, is A.J. Brown is having a career year. Jalen Hurts is having a career year, might honestly wind up with MVP possibly. Other guys are kicking ass, and none of them are talking about that. The only thing they care about is winning, and the one goal is to get back to the Super Bowl. And I think they're super, super on the way to go to there. I think the biggest thing for me is I thought about this yesterday too. It was is this team better than last year? I think they are. I think they have more weapons. I think defensively, especially with Kevin Byard there, once he gets accustomed, they're going to be really solid on pass defense. I think their pass defense, they were hurt, banged up a little bit, but once they get that settled, the run defense is a lot better than last year. Offensively, I think they're better than last year. Once the play calling and stuff really turns it up, they're close to there. And, this whole stretch is really going to tell us a lot. There you have 5 or 6 games that, this is going to be it. The public's going to look at every game, prime time for a majority of those games. And if we could win 5, maybe even 6 of those games, like nobody's going to be telling us anything. And I'm excited, bro. They played Dallas on Sunday, and if they could beat Dallas, that could be a real big advantage for us coming into the following weeks.
Yeah, a win over Dallas is certainly huge. So looking at the schedule versus Dallas, bye week at Kansas City, versus Buffalo, versus the Niners, at Dallas, at Seattle. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of tough competition. If you leave that 4-2, you feel really good. You feel really good leaving that at 4-2, because who knows, Seattle and San Francisco are probably going to be really desperate when we play them for wins. Dallas, odds are we split, right? It'd be really shocking to sweep them in a series of 2 games in a season. The Eagles always struggle when they go into Dallas in the regular season too. At Kansas City, how desperate are they going to be right now? We'll talk about them in a second, but you mentioned Jalen Hurts for MVP. Patrick Mahomes, after that game versus Denver, that certainly hurt where he's at right now. Tyreek Hill, he's still got to be in consideration, but Jalen Hurts had a really monster week, right? 300-plus passing yards and 4 touchdowns. He's going to have the rushing yards, the rushing touchdowns again. We've seen it. If he can continue to pass like this for a stretch of games, he's going to become the favorite.
And especially throwing the ball a lot these next 6 games, I think that's
they're going to have to put up
the
points to beat these teams. You're going to have to put up points to beat Dallas. You're going to have to put up points to beat Kansas City, to beat Buffalo. Those are offenses that, as good as your defense is, they have enough talent that they'll get points. So it'll be real interesting to see, man. But 7-1, about midway through the season, you can't ask for much more if you're an Eagles fan. I know when they lost that game, us Eagles fans hadn't experienced something like that in the regular season for quite some time. It's kind of crazy how the way we talked about Brock Purdy for all the winning he did doesn't happen with Jalen Hurts when he has like 2 regular season losses in the last 2 years. Brock Purdy's got 3 in a row. But I digress. We don't need to continue beating a dead horse, I suppose. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, because they lost to the Broncos for the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era, which is crazy. They had beaten them like 16 straight times. But does the loss bring concern? And initially, I don't blame you if your first reaction is, oh, come on, ball boys. The Chiefs can't lose one game. Really? My concern isn't that they lost a game. They can lose a game here and there. It happens. And even a divisional game to Denver, right? Is Washington a top-tier team? No. But do they give the Eagles trouble? Yeah. Like, any divisional game, you kind of get a pass from me. The concerns that I have for Kansas City don't stem from just Denver, but we saw them on display in Denver. We talked about this in the offseason when we talked about the Chiefs getting back to the Super Bowl. The core of wide receivers is worse than last year. And you saw it in this game. Rashee Rice had a drop, but he is their wide receiver 1. But he's a rookie. MVS, McCole Hardman had a muffed punt. And if Travis Kelce doesn't play phenomenal, the offense is stagnant. And you wonder, can this team keep pace and win games consistently on a playoff run? I don't have any doubt that they could beat Cincinnati or Buffalo on any given week. But could they go over and over again and beat Cincinnati, beat Jacksonville, beat Baltimore, beat Philadelphia? I'm not sure that they have the offensive firepower too. As well, this show isn't like a drama podcast, but I want, we got to ask the question because it's been brought up. How focused is Travis Kelce? Everything going on in his dating life is very public. You can't blame him for having some focus there. And Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco ripped into him on the nightcap for this. So, those are real NFL players, so don't come at me. But they thought him going to the Rangers game in the World Series was a bad sign. Not a good look. Because the Chiefs were in Kansas City, and then he goes to Texas, and their game's in Denver. And the game he went to in Texas was on Friday night. The game in Denver's on Sunday. Listen, I get it. Planes, how travel works, etc. I didn't think anything of it until former NFL players said that they both thought something of it. That he's not engaged and locked in. That's just not something you do. And if that's just not something you do, then I have to question the focus of you as a player. And again, it's the Chiefs. We're in week 8. Can they figure it out? Absolutely. Do they have the best shot of figuring it out because they have Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, or Travis Kelce? Absolutely. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't slightly concerned with this team.
Look, man, the thing that will concern me is if they lose this game on Sunday against the Dolphins and they have a bye week the following week, and the following week they play us. And I would be very concerned if I was an Eagles fan. But speaking about the Chiefs, though, I mean, the Kelce thing, I was going to mention that. I'm not sure if you were. It was crazy. I was watching that, and I'm like, Taylor Swift is not even at the game. So why is he at the Texas? Like, he has no affiliation with the Texas Rangers, like at all. And it made no sense.
I didn't see, like, I was out at the bar for like a little Halloween thing, so like I wasn't 100% focused on the TV 100% of the time. Like, full transparency, and like I'm not a huge baseball guy, so like I was in and out of the World Series to begin with, and like it's not exactly the teams that I would have wanted to see in there. I digress. Like, if I was if I liked baseball how I liked football, of course I'd still be watching, right? But I just don't. So I was kind of half watching it, had a little bit of a bet on the Rangers once they were down, cashed. But I'd really guess there was some kind of brand deal, whether he was wearing something, drinking something, because he was up in a box, and typically if like a celebrity's up in a box at an event that's not like their home team, usually it's like a brand box. And he's been in a lot more commercials lately, obviously. Again, like I said, date who you want. I'm not like dogging on him for his dating life, but certain opportunities are coming his way now because of how public he is. And my guess is going to that game wearing some Nike thing or drinking some specific like Powerade beverage while in the stands. Make sure you're holding it while the camera comes to. I don't know, something like that. That'd be my guess as to what the opportunity was that he was there, because they're from Ohio, the Kelceys, so he's not a Rangers fan. I didn't see him like on the field with any Rangers players after the fact. Like, it's not like him and Corey Seager are like boys. So unless he's just like a big baseball guy and really wanted to go to the World Series, but I don't know. I mean, they were at the Phillies game. They kept like the Eagles, but again, that's right in your city. So it's not like Kansas City, Missouri, and Arlington, Texas are right next to each other. Like, he had to hop on the red eye to get there.
I think too, we have to mention too, Patrick Mahomes was sick. He was feeling under the weather, and that came up Sunday morning, and the weather was not.
A lot of guys were sick this week
at all.
man.
Like, it was definitely cold in Denver, altitude, stuff like that. So I do, there's a lot of factors that play into it. But like you mentioned too, I mean, there have been some games where the Chiefs, had to kind of win at the end. It wasn't pretty. And, going into Sunday, man, this is a huge game for both teams, I feel like, because the Dolphins, they're still missing that key win that really was like, wow, okay, this Dolphins team has a shot of making the Super Bowl.
And in the big games versus Buffalo and Philly, they got cooked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just they're missing the big key win, but in the big key spots, they've been made to look like a pretender.
Facts. And like we've seen before, I'm going to be very curious to see when each team, and this is in Germany too, I'm going to be very curious to see when these teams arrive in Germany.
How do you think Tua does with the Spagnolia pressure? He likes to send blitzes. I know you are the podcast Tua, I guess, hater, doubter, whatever you'd like to call it. You just don't believe in him, which is, valid. It's not like he's performed at an NFL level at a high level for you to believe in him, but that's a defense where they'll send pressure. And they've been, the Chiefs have been a top 5, top 10 defense this year. So he's facing a real defense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much more interested to see. I mean, maybe not, because now that Ramsey's back, I'm excited to see that. It's a really good game. It's one to wake up for.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the Dolphins have a nice way to spread the ball around, and they're stupid fast, man. And I think that's the perfect advantage over a heavy blitzing team. Like, it's different between the Eagles, where the Eagles, that pass rush, you could bring 3 guys even, and still have a solid pass rush. Whereas the Chiefs, they're blitz heavy. Spagnuolo, that's what he does.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, I think Tua will be all right for Sunday, and I don't want to give a preview or anything, but I think they win. I think the Dolphins win, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens. I'm excited. Like you said, there's 3 games at least that are going to be freaking awesome to watch.
Yeah, I want to see if there's one during the 1 o'clock slate, because the way that we just listed all those games, none of those take place at the 1 o'clock slate.
Yeah. That means you go to Buffalo Wild Wings at 4 o'clock and not 1 o'clock for people.
Yeah, looking at these 1 o'clock games. No, I mean Seattle at Baltimore. That's a good one.
That's solid.
And then Monday Night Football is Chargers Jets. I mean, that'll be interesting.
You mean not the Cardinals at the Browns?
No. What's his name? Clayton? Is that who's starting for the Cardinals?
Bro, I think they're tanking. I think that they
said, "Damn, Josh Jobs too good."
once they saw who just won,
the Panthers.
Once they saw the Panthers win, they're like, yeah, like Jobs, you're good, man. Like we're good. So
hey, man, you'll be the backup for Caleb next year, Dobbs. You earned that spot. Congrats, buddy. Yeah, just final notes on the Chiefs here. Today is the trade deadline as we're recording this.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to come out at like 4 o'clock. The trade deadline will be over. The Chiefs hopefully made a move for a wide receiver.
I mean, like, sure, no trades of.
Yeah. I was just checking. Man, and I didn't put this on the thing. So before we hop into the top 5 teams, bro, I don't know how it would happen. I don't care where he goes. Somebody free Devontae Adams, bro.
Bro, watching that was so sad.
Like, dude, I have him in fantasy, and it was like sad enough for me. But then, like, just watching him be frustrated on the sideline, I was like, man, like, he deserves so much better. This is like a first ballot Hall of Famer, and like he's stuck with like one of the worst quarterbacks in football.
And usually the case is, they're kind of towards the end of the career. Like, like they got some hit and miss plays where they're open and they're not. He's still in his prime, I think. He still could put up so many numbers, and he's stuck.
That, like, dude, the Twitter that you shared of Jackpot with Jimmy Garoppolo, if that was at the back of the end zone where it was supposed to be, Adams could have made a play on it.
It was beyond, like, I don't know what was going on in
Jimmy G's just ass, bro.
I like Jimmy G. I just think he's not the guy for this team.
He's ass. And Josh McDaniels is also ass.
Yeah, that whole organization.
Yeah. So let's move into our top 5 teams here. Nolan, you got yours ready to go?
All right. So last week, I have almost the same, but obviously I have the Niners in there, and after Sunday,
and who didn't have the Niners in their top 5 and was ridiculed?
So look, it's not about who do you think is gonna stay in. It's at the current moment, and that's what I base my top 5 on. I could say, I don't think they're this good, but you have to go based off the stats, based off the records. So top 5. Number 5, I have the Miami Dolphins. I think they're playing very well. They're playing awesome football. Played good against the Pats. The Pats are a good defense. And they still won by 14. Big game on Sunday, so we're gonna find out if they're top 5 or not after this week. Number 4, I'm gonna keep probably the same. I have the Baltimore Ravens at 4. Solid win against Arizona. Nothing to really boast about. 3, I have Jacksonville Jaguars. Awesome win in Pittsburgh. I know Kenny Pickett got hurt, but even before that, they were kicking ass. And, sloppy game. Got a nice W. The wheels are turning up there. So, good win for them. Number 2, I'm going to have the Kansas City Chiefs. I had the Chiefs at 1 last week, but after the loss, you got to put them at 2 until they prove me wrong. So that's a bad loss. And number 1, I got the Eagles, man. I said last week that, they have to beat 2 until the Chiefs kind of, do something. But, hey, man, the Chiefs lost. So if I'm just doing a top 5 off right now in the regular season and not pass championships and whatnot, I have to put the Birds at 1. So Birds at 1, big game Sunday, like we both know. And we're going to see that if it stays true and they hold that top spot for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. For reference, last week at 5, I had the Lions. At 4, I had the Jaguars, 3 the Ravens, 2 the Eagles, and 1 the Chiefs. This week at 5, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. They do fall down a spot despite the win. I'll explain once I get to who's number 4.
All right, so hold on. This Detroit Lions boasting is OD.
I didn't know the Lions aren't above them. Lions fell out of the top 5.
Okay, I'll digress.
I have the Jaguars at 5. Trevor Lawrence did what he had to do, got the win. The offense didn't look too crazy dynamic. Travis Etienne is having a monster season for that team. I liked seeing Calvin Ridley more involved, obviously. The defense, they get a ton of takeaways. They are a very, very solid football team. There's no doubt about it. At 4, I have the Miami Dolphins, though. Seeing Jalen Ramsey back on that defense, he still got it. And that was a big question coming in. With that injury, he didn't look like he had it so much last year with the Rams, but it was, is he falling off or is he on a really shitty team, so he's not interested in giving it his all? He looked like he had it versus the Patriots. Now, a lot of corners look like they have it against Mac Jones, so we'll see what happens in Germany. But like you mentioned, ton of speed. Offensive Player of the Year in Tyreek Hill could be MVP. Yeah, Jalen Waddle, he's been really solid. Tua, I don't have him in MVP conversations, but plenty of people do. A really great defense. I like Mike McDaniel, so I did move them up. I swapped them with like the Lions, so I have the Dolphins at 4. At 3, I have the Chiefs. I worry about how dynamic this offense could be in games against tougher defenses. And tougher opponents. I wonder if they're able to keep up. Their defense is excellent. We know who Patrick Mahomes is, but statistically, he's having a worse season than Russell Wilson. And nobody's saying that Russell Wilson is better than Patrick Mahomes, but it just goes to show you he's having an off year. Travis Kelce, he's pretty hot and cold. It's the Chiefs. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. How many, I don't want to base it all off of previous experience, but at a certain point, you got to give teams respect. They're still 6-2, so they're still finding a way to win despite some of their flaws. And that's a thing that we gave the Chiefs credit for. We give the Eagles credit for. Great teams win despite flaws. We'll see what they look like. But at number 2, I have the Baltimore Ravens, man. They were clearly looking past the Cardinals. We kind of talked about that. That's why I said I thought the Cardinals were a sneaky cover. They did, because I felt like the Ravens were just going to kind of go into that game relaxed. Very much so felt like they did. But the fact that they have the ability to go into NFL games on the road relaxed and still win, that's a great team. We talked about Jalen being in MVP conversations. Lamar's right there with him. Mark Andrews has been getting more involved. You like to see that. Zay Flowers has been a sensational rookie wide receiver. That defense, the linebackers of Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith, I couldn't be more jealous. Marlon Humphrey has been sensational since he's come back from his injury. This Ravens seems legit. And at number 1, I also have the Eagles. 7-1, best record in football. Not that it's a power rankings based on record, but, take that into account. I've heard for weeks now that they're not playing good football. And they're 7-1. Like, I know that we're hard on them as Philly fans because of the expectation, and especially Philadelphia. Like, if you're full Philly everything, because the Phillies losing after being right there, the Eagles being right there, watching the Sixers, like, the city is just begging for a championship because they've been so close in just about every single sport. But yeah, the Eagles, top to bottom, it's the best roster in football. I think Jalen Hurts definitely has a shot to win MVP. A.J. Brown, if it wasn't for Tyreek Hill being an absolute monster, would be considered the best wide receiver this season. He's clearly the second best. And to have the luxury of a guy like Devonta Smith, who you can unload in games like this for $7.99 and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, I think he's the best Eagles running back since LaShawn McCoy. I'll ride on that hill. And Howie, he's not done. So those are our top 5 teams. Definitely let us know yours in the comments. Let's hop into a Thursday night football preview. A game that like a week ago, I didn't think was going to be fun. But now I'm interested. The Tennessee Titans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, I hear you, but what is Will Levis, man? He came out and balled. And, you know, it was against the Falcons. So what are the Falcons? I don't know. But Will Levis, 4 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins, all of a sudden, has a ton of fantasy life. The game's in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett, does he play? Minka Fitzpatrick's out, so Will Levis gets a little help there on that secondary. And the Titans at 3-4, the Steelers at 4-3, man. You know, that last spot in the wild card for the AFC, it could be one of these two teams if Will Levis is legit. Do you think Will Levis is legit, or do you think it was a flash in the pan game 1?
All right, so
short week will help him.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, he was a Penn State guy, you know, so I have to give him some props and some love because I do want him to succeed. It's very tough because he has a lot of awesome skills. I think he can be good. I don't want to push anything right now. I don't want to say anything because it's tough to really judge. But he had an awesome game, bro. Even before he was popping off, I was watching like the first quarter, and he had some really nice zip on the balls, man. Placement wise, it could have been a little better at times, but he was throwing to like 100-mile-per-hour dots, like it
yeah,
was.
Dude,
it was
like
solid.
He looked good, and I was like, because like when the draft happened, I thought he was ass.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is, I mean, freaking, it's funny because you look at him and you're like, why did we start Tannehill for like 5 years? You know, like it's night and day between the two.
What were they seeing at practice?
And it's funny because I was always like, Tannehill sucks. Why are you starting him every single year? And he was like just getting reps, like just handing the ball off to Henry, and you know, being a game manager. He had AJ Brown. Like he was like, and finally, like it took a Tannehill injury to really get to show what they had. Because if Tannehill doesn't get hurt, he's probably still starting.
And Malik Willis started the game. Yeah. Like, if Malik Willis doesn't fumble, who knows if Levis gets in?
Mm-hmm.
If, like, that drive ends in, like, Malik Willis to Derrick Henry screen pass touchdown, I don't even know if Levis gets in. And then for the Steelers, man, they're 4-3. They're right at 500. So, you know, Tomlin, Gremlin mode comes out when you get close to 500.
I don't know, man. Pittsburgh's not easy.
Yeah, the under maybe, but Will Levis can be thrown. I don't know, man. Here's one for you. If you weren't starting DeAndre Hopkins in a fantasy league, are you starting him this week? Obviously, I can't like tell you exactly. I mean, we could probably play a game like DeAndre Hopkins this week or Zay Flowers.
Baltimore plays who?
Seattle.
Oh, I'd probably go Hopkins.
We could try and find where the line is. DeAndre Hopkins or George Pickens in this same game?
I'd probably go Hopkins.
DeAndre Hopkins or Mike Evans. Tampa plays Houston.
I'd probably go Hopkins.
I'm gonna try. We're gonna go until we find the line. I mean, anybody that's watching 43 minutes in, I'm sure they're fine with this little game that we're playing here. Let's see what else we got for projections here. Would you go DeAndre Hopkins or Devonta Smith?
I go Devonta
Smith. Okay. Hopkins or Garrett Wilson versus the Chargers?
Oh, Garrett Wilson, I think.
All right.
That's tough, though.
And then I'm guessing this is where like the line's going to end, that you're probably going to land on Hopkins, but I'll throw it out there anyways. DeAndre Hopkins or DJ Moore? DJ Moore versus the Saints.
Oh, that's tough. DJ Moore rips the Saints a new one every time they play. That's a toss up for me. I could go either
Yeah,
way.
so that's the line right there. DJ
Yeah.
Moore. All right, well, we figured that out. You like the Titans or you like Pittsburgh in this game? Obviously, we kind of don't know if Kenny Pickett's going to play, so that kind of blows.
I'm
But
gonna go.
if you had to shoot your shot,
I'm gonna go with Pittsburgh. I think they just have that Pittsburgh Steelers juju.
I think TJ Watt is going to
Thursday at
welcome
home.
Will Levis to the football.
Yeah, like it's gonna be a very ugly. Hopefully it rains. And
I think it's gonna be like a 19-13 game.
Yeah, I
don't know if either team reaches 20.
I was thinking like 13-9, like just ugly. Like
I wonder if there's what kind of NBA games are on Thursday. that tells you where we may be at with our expectations for this game Thursday. Raptors, Sixers.
Nick Nurse.
Yeah, not maybe Thursdays for going out, guys. But we appreciate you joining us as always for another episode of the Ball Boys podcast. We'll be back up here this Friday to preview a loaded NFL Week 9. We'll be back up here Saturday, talk about James Harden on the Clippers. Hopefully we'll have seen some game action at that point. You can give some real analysis of the team as well. As always, for all your sports betting needs, check out the College Kids Experience on Twitter. Links are in the bio for us, for them. Coffee of Gods got us through the episode. Just tastes so good. I might go have another cup just for fun. But we will catch you guys next time. All right, peace.
Peace.